She arrived in a dusty truck. They made fun of her faded hoodie. The owner's arrogant son publicly humiliated her and kicked her out the gate. They thought she was a nobody. Little did they know. The quiet woman was Warrant Officer 5, Serafina Reyes, the military's most elite female tactical driver, sent to decide the fate of their multi-million-dollar fortune. And they had just made a huge mistake. The late summer sun baked the Nevada desert, turning the air into a shimmering haze above the asphalt. In this vast expanse of scorched earth sat Apex Dynamics Proving Grounds, an oasis of polished chrome and roaring engines where the wealthy came to play with their expensive toys. The atmosphere was a potent cocktail of high-octane fuel, burning rubber, and the cloying scent of designer cologne. It was a cathedral built to the gods of speed and status. Into this sanctuary of opulence, a weathered Ford F-150, its red paint faded by the sun and caked with a layer of dust, rumbled into the parking lot. The driver, Serafina Sarah Reyes, deliberately parked it in the space between a canary-yellow Lamborghini and a menacingly black McLaren, where the old truck sat like a humble boulder between two glittering jewels. Sarah stepped out, a woman who seemed designed to be overlooked. In her early 30s, she had a lean, wiry build, hidden beneath a plain gray hoodie and worn-out jeans. Her dark brown hair was pulled back into a simple, functional ponytail, and her face was devoid of makeup. She possessed a quiet stillness, but her sharp brown eyes missed nothing, constantly scanning, assessing, analyzing. Her calm demeanor was not a product of shyness, but of a profound self-assurance that had no need for external validation, forged in crucibles far harsher than this desert playground. Inside the climate-controlled showroom, Caden Vance was holding court. At 25, he was the heir to the Apex empire, and he wore his privilege like the tailored Italian racing suit that hugged his athletic frame. His blonde hair was perfectly coiffed, and an expensive watch glinted on his wrist as he gestured expansively. He was handsome, confident, and utterly convinced of his own superiority. Hovering at his elbow was Blake, a man a few years older with the eager-to-please look of a born sycophant. Blake's job was to laugh at Caden's jokes and echo his opinions, a role he performed with practiced devotion. As Sarah approached the group, Caden was boasting about a new prototype. "The technology is flawless, a pure expression of power," he declared. Sarah listened silently before interjecting, her voice calm but clear, cutting through the self-congratulatory chatter. "I see you're using carbon ceramic brake discs. Given the vehicle's weight, how does your thermal management system handle heat dissipation after 3 consecutive hot laps? Specifically, when friction temperatures risk altering the composite's microstructure?" The question was a scalpel, precise and deeply technical. The group fell silent. Caden's practiced smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a flicker of genuine confusion in his blue eyes before the mask of arrogance slammed back down. He didn't know the answer. Rather than admit it, he attacked the questioner. He looked Sarah up and down, a sneer twisting his lips. He turned to Blake. "See? This is why we have a high membership fee. To filter out people who don't belong." He then faced Sarah directly. "Listen, we drive cars here. We don't write doctoral theses. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the public library." Laughter rippled through the group. Blake chuckled the loudest. Caden gestured to 2 burly security guards. "Show our guest out." Meanwhile, in the pristine workshop, the sound of an air wrench was punctuated by the shrill ring of a cheap cell phone. Leo Martinez, his hands stained with grease, quickly wiped them on a rag before answering. He was a man in his late 30s, his face etched with the quiet exhaustion of a single parent. His kind, dark eyes held a perpetual sadness, a shadow that had lingered since his wife passed away 2 years prior, but they could still light up with warmth, especially when he thought of his daughter. "Hello?" The voice of the school nurse was tinny and familiar. "Mr. Martinez, it's about Mia. Her asthma is acting up again." Leo's heart sank. He felt a familiar wave of helplessness, his hand tightening on a wrench. He glanced at his phone's lock screen, a picture of an 8-year-old girl with a gap-toothed, radiant smile. Just then, Caden strode through the workshop, his racing boots clicking on the polished concrete. He wrinkled his nose in distaste. "Martinez, clean up your station. Your grease is offending the premium air in here. Leo ended the call quickly. Yes, Mr. Vance. He bowed his head, the weight of the mortgage, the medical bills, and Mia's fragile health pressing down on him. As he began cleaning, he saw the security guards escorting Sarah toward the exit. He saw the condescending smirks of Caden's crowd. He didn't just see a stranger being treated unfairly. In Sarah's quiet dignity and defiant posture, he saw a reflection of his late wife, a woman who also possessed a silent, unbreakable strength. The memory sparked a small act of rebellion. Ignoring the risk of Caden's wrath, Leo grabbed a cold bottle of water from the cooler and intercepted Sarah just before the gate. Sorry about him, he murmured, pressing the bottle into her hand. He's not always like that. Sometimes he's worse. Sarah looked at the mechanic, truly seeing him. She saw the grease under his nails, the worry in his eyes, and the profound decency in his simple gesture. Thank you, she said, her voice softer now. It was the first moment of genuine human connection she'd experienced all day. 50 miles away from the glitz of Apex Dynamics, the world was a different shade of brown. At Nellis Air Force Base, the corridors were sterile, the air smelled of floor polish and discipline, and the only chrome was on the insignia of the officers striding purposefully through the halls. Here, function reigned supreme over form. In a secure windowless briefing room, Serafina Reyes stood before a large digital screen, her gray hoodie replaced by a crisp, perfectly fitted flight suit. The insignia on her collar, that of a Chief Warrant Officer 5, commanded a silent respect that no expensive watch ever could. Across the polished table sat General Thompson, a man in his late 50s whose broad shoulders filled out his uniform. He had a face carved from experience, with a square jaw and intelligent gray eyes that held a mixture of command authority and paternal warmth. He was a veteran of 3 conflicts who had seen true courage and foolish bravado, and he had long ago learned to tell the difference. He had known Sarah since she was a hot-headed recruit with a genius for vehicle dynamics, and he had personally mentored her ascent to the military's most elite technical ranks. Your preliminary assessment is blunt, Sarah, the general said, his deep voice calm as he looked at the data stream on his own tablet. The screen behind Sarah displayed a detailed schematic of Apex Dynamics, marked with numerous red flags. The perimeter fence has security gaps a coyote could walk through, Sarah reported, her tone flat and factual. Their refueling protocols are a fire marshal's nightmare, using non-standard grounding equipment. The on-site medic has a kit that wouldn't handle a serious paper cut, let alone a high-speed impact. She paused, her gaze unwavering. They have the best cars money can buy, General, but they're operating with the mindset of an amateur car club. All flash, no substance. The leadership, Caden Vance, is an embodiment of that philosophy. Thompson nodded slowly, his fingers steepled. I knew you'd see past the polished paintwork. I didn't send you there to admire their supercars. I sent you to inspect their backbone, and it sounds like it's brittle. He leaned forward, his expression serious. I trust your judgment completely. The Pentagon is pushing for this civilian partnership, but I won't sign off on a contract that puts my people at risk. Tomorrow's demonstration will be their final exam. We're not just testing their machines anymore. We're testing their character. That evening, in a small, sparsely furnished apartment that smelled faintly of Vicks Vapo Rub, Leo Martinez sat by his daughter's bedside. The only sound was the gentle rhythmic puffing of the nebulizer, helping Mia breathe. She was asleep, her small face peaceful, a worn copy of a book about dragons having slipped from her grasp. Leo gently brushed a strand of dark hair from her forehead, his heart aching as he listened to the slight wheeze in her chest. He looked over at the small kitchen table, where a stack of white envelopes, medical bills, sat like a monument to his constant anxiety. He felt trapped, the love for his daughter a powerful motivator and a heavy burden. The next morning at the workshop, the tension was thick. The demonstration car, a finely tuned Porsche, was the center of attention. Caden, already in his racing suit, stormed over to Leo. Martinez! What did you do to the engine control unit? I took it for a test spin and it's sluggish at the top end. The ignition timing is off. Are you trying to sabotage my demonstration? Leo remained calm, plugging a diagnostic tablet into the car's port, He scrolled through lines of data. Mr. Vance, the timing is perfect. The sensor logs show a spike in fuel trim variance yesterday morning. It suggests you were revving the engine hard while it was still cold. That can cause a temporary misreading from the O2 sensor. The technical truth was a direct challenge to Caden's ego. Caden's face flushed with anger. He couldn't accept that the fault was his own. Don't you dare lecture me on my own equipment. I don't pay you to make excuses. I pay you to fix things. Now fix it, he snarled, jabbing a finger toward the engine. The words of a skilled mechanic, explaining thermal expansion and sensor calibration, died on Leo's lips. In their place came the words of a father. He needed this job. Mia needed him to have this job. He lowered his gaze. Yes, Mr. Vance. I'll recalibrate it immediately. He turned back to the car, his professional pride wounded, but his paternal resolve unbroken. The grandstand at Apex Dynamics simmered under the oppressive desert sun, a collection of investors and VIPs fanning themselves with glossy brochures. On a raised platform sat Marcus Vance, Caden's father, a man in his late 60s with sharp, calculating eyes and a perfectly tailored suit that defied the heat. Marcus was the architect of the Apex Empire. Unlike his son's flamboyant arrogance, Marcus possessed a quiet, predatory stillness. He was a shrewd businessman who viewed the world as a series of calculated risks, his one great miscalculation being the unchecked ego of his own son. He watched the proceedings with a look of detached appraisal, expecting nothing less than perfection. From the back row, General Thompson and his plainclothes aides observed with an entirely different kind of scrutiny. The demonstration scenario was announced with dramatic flair, a simulated hostage rescue through a technical obstacle course. The final, most difficult challenge was a simulated electromagnetic pulse, EMP, strike, which would disable all electronic driver aids. ABS, traction control, stability management, forcing the driver to rely on pure mechanical skill. Caden, radiating confidence, slid into the cockpit of the silver Porsche. He started strong, a blur of speed and precision as he navigated the initial chicanes and hairpin turns. The crowd murmured in appreciation. Blake was practically glowing with vicarious pride. Caden was a skilled track driver, comfortable and aggressive when technology was his co-pilot. His confidence swelled with each perfectly executed maneuver. Then came the announcement over the loudspeakers. EMP activated. All driver assists are now offline. The change was instantaneous. The Porsche, suddenly stripped of its digital safety nets, became a wild, untamed beast. It was no longer a partner, but an adversary. As Caden entered a long, sweeping corner at high speed, his instincts screamed for the familiar, forgiving feel of the electronic aids. He braked too hard, too late. The familiar anti-lock pulse wasn't there. The wheels locked up, and the car screeched in protest, thick smoke billowing from the tires. The Porsche snapped into a violent, uncontrolled spin, a silver top pirouetting across the track before smashing sideways into a safety barrier with a sickening crunch of metal and composite. A stunned silence fell over the grandstand. Caden sat motionless in the cockpit, the silence broken only by the hiss of a ruptured radiator. From the technicians' area, Leo Martinez watched, his heart sinking. He and his team stood ready with fire extinguishers, a standard precaution that now felt horribly inadequate. He had warned Caden just that morning. Sir, without the electronic stability program, the car's liftoff oversteer is brutal. You have to be gentle with the throttle. Caden had waved him off dismissively, calling it the nervous hand-wringing of an old man. Now, Leo's professional fear for the company's future was a cold knot in his stomach. But then, a new sound emerged. Not the high-strung shriek of a supercar, but the deep, guttural roar of a military-grade engine. From a hangar at the far end of the facility, a matte black Dagor tactical vehicle burst into view. It was a machine built for war, not for show, all sharp angles and rugged functionality. It accelerated onto the track with a brutal sense of purpose. The crowd watched, confused, as the Dagor began the same course. The driving was different. It wasn't flashy. It was terrifyingly efficient. The driver used a Scandinavian flick to swing the vehicle's rear end around a tight corner, a technique of controlled chaos. Through the slick patch where Caden had spun out, the Daygore seemed to glide, the driver using left foot braking to continuously balance the vehicle's weight, while simultaneously applying throttle to maintain momentum. It wasn't a fight against the vehicle, it was a fluid dialogue with it. Approaching the crashed Porsche, the Daygore executed a perfect high-speed reverse J-turn, spinning 180 degrees and coming to a halt just inches from the disabled car's door. Every movement was precise, economical, and utterly masterful. Leo watched, mesmerized. "Look at that throttle control," he whispered to a younger mechanic beside him. "Not a single wasted motion. He's not driving it. He and that vehicle are one." He was the only person there who fully grasped the sublime artistry he was witnessing. The door of the Daygore opened. A figure in a full combat uniform and helmet stepped out. The driver walked with a confident stride toward the grandstand, stopping before the stunned Vances. Then, with a smooth, practiced motion, the driver removed the helmet. It was Serafina Reyes. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Blake's jaw hung open. Marcus Vance's face went pale, the shrewd businessman finally seeing a risk he had failed to calculate. Caden stared, his face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. And in the back row, a slow, satisfied smile spread across General Thompson's face. The storm had arrived. In the stark, opulent silence of the Apex Dynamics boardroom, the air was thick with the ghosts of yesterday's ambitions. The Vances, father and son, sat opposite Serafina Reyes and General Thompson. Caden was a ghost himself, a hollowed-out version of the arrogant prince from the day before. His expensive suit seemed to hang off him, and his gaze was fixed on the polished mahogany of the table, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Marcus Vance, however, looked directly at Sarah. The predatory glint was gone from his eyes, replaced by the weary clarity of a man who had seen his empire teeter on the brink. He spoke, his voice raspy with regret. "Chief Warrant Officer, there are no excuses for my son's behavior. I gave him the keys to the kingdom, but forgot to teach him the weight of the crown. The failure is mine." Sarah listened, her expression unreadable. She wasn't here for apologies or retribution. She was here on a mission. "Your facility has potential, Mr. Vance," she stated, her voice even and firm. "But its culture is a liability. The contract will proceed, but under new terms." She slid a data slate across the table. "Effective immediately, Apex Dynamics will establish a scholarship foundation, funded by 10% of its annual profits, to sponsor talented drivers from underprivileged backgrounds. Secondly, all training programs involving military personnel will be co-managed by a SOCOM liaison officer. My team will have final say on curriculum and instructor qualifications." She looked from Marcus to the silent Caden. "We are here to build exceptional drivers, not entitled ones. These are not negotiable." Marcus Vance looked at the terms, then at the unwavering woman before him. He saw no malice, only purpose. This was not a punishment. It was a restructuring. He gave a single, decisive nod. "We accept." Sarah left the tense boardroom and made her way to the workshop. The smell of oil and metal felt more honest than the perfumed air of the executive suite. She found Leo Martinez quietly packing away tools, methodically cleaning up the debris from the failed demonstration. He was trying to restore order to his corner of a world that had just been turned upside down. He looked up as she approached, his expression a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Chief Warrant Officer," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Mr. Martinez," Sarah began, getting straight to the point. "As part of the new joint program, the Department of Defense requires a head of technical operations to oversee the maintenance and modification of all training vehicles, someone we can trust implicitly." Leo looked confused. "I'm sure you have many qualified people." Sarah cut him off gently. "I've reviewed your service record. 15 years. Impeccable. But that's not why I'm here." She looked him in the eye. "Yesterday, you saw a stranger being ridiculed, and you chose to offer a kindness when it would have been easier to look away. That shows character." Leo was stunned into silence. I'm just a mechanic, ma'am. I don't know the first thing about management." Sarah's expression softened into a small smile. "You have integrity, Leo. You understand the difference between right and wrong. That's the foundation of leadership. We can train you for the rest." She extended her hand. "The position comes with a significant salary increase and a comprehensive health insurance plan for you and your family." The mention of his family, of Mia, was the final, overwhelming blow to his composure. Tears welled in his eyes as he shook her hand, his rough, calloused palm meeting hers. "Thank you," he managed to say, the two words carrying the weight of a lifetime of struggle. 6 months later, the blistering heat of summer had given way to the mild, clear skies of a Nevada spring. The atmosphere at Apex Dynamics was transformed. The arrogant chatter of the wealthy had been replaced by the focused hum of disciplined training. Near the main hangar, where a state-of-the-art playground now stood, a little girl with bright, happy eyes laughed as she soared on a swing. It was Mia. Her breathing was easy and clear, the wheezing of the nebulizer a distant memory. Watching her was Leo, no longer in a greasy jumpsuit, but in the clean, professional polo shirt of a department head. He still looked humble, but a quiet confidence now sat on his shoulders. He saw Sarah observing a training session and walked over, handing her a cup of coffee. "Everything is running smoothly, boss," he said with an easy smile. Sarah took the cup. "Just Sarah, Leo. We're colleagues." He chuckled. "Mia asked me something funny last night. She wants to know when she can start taking lessons." He pointed his chin toward the track where a young scholarship student was expertly navigating a complex chicane. "She says she wants to be a driver. She wants to be cool, like Miss Sarah." A genuine, radiant smile spread across Sarah's face. She looked from Mia's joyful play to the determined faces of the new generation of drivers on the track. The storm had passed, and in its wake, something new and strong had begun to grow. This, she thought, was a victory far greater than any race. Here is the final message for the story. In the end, what happened to Leo Martinez and his daughter Mia was more than just a fortunate turn of events. For a good man who worked hard and prayed for a breakthrough, the arrival of Serafina Reyes felt like an answer to those prayers. A quiet miracle dressed in a dusty hoodie. This story reminds us that God often works in ways we cannot predict. He doesn't always send thunder and lightning to announce his presence. Sometimes he sends a person. He places a quiet, observant woman in the right place at the right time, not only to expose arrogance, but to lift up the humble and the deserving. In your own life, you may sometimes feel invisible. You might believe that your integrity, your quiet kindness, and your tireless efforts go unnoticed in a world that often rewards the loudest voices. But have faith. Your character is your greatest asset, and it is seen. You never know when God will send an angel into your life, not with wings and a halo, but perhaps in the form of a stranger who sees the good in you that others have overlooked. Continue to do what is right, even when it is hard. Your blessing may be just around the corner, waiting for the perfect moment to arrive. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a message of hope. Like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel for more content that uplifts the spirit. Thank you for watching. May God bless each and every one of you, and may He watch over you and your loved ones always.